Stuart? Yeah. Give me 10.
Yeah.
All right.
Happy for one. We'll keep building.
Everybody. Okay, we'll call to order the regular city council meeting of April 25th, 2022. Madam Clerk, the roll, please.
Vixen.
Here.
Salvia.
Here.
Albrecht.
Here.
Gould.
Here.
Harrison.
Here.
Peterson.
Here.
Sage.
Here. Thank you. Would you please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? Please stand.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome, everybody, on this fine spring day. First, we're going to go to public comment, scheduled, non-scheduled presentation. Is there anybody in the audience who'd like to say something? Brian, any?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm not seeing any public comment at this time.
Okay. Next, we have a proclamation recognizing May 1st through May 7th, 2022 as Public Service Recognition Week. So I want to say thank you to all of our excellent city employees, public servants all. Thank you for the job you guys do. And we have a resolution here that Mr. City Manager, are we supposed to give this to somebody or?
Yep, so I hang these up at City Hall. So once everybody is signed, I guess after you guys have voted to approve it, I'll put it in a plaque and then we'll get that again hung up
Sounds good.
next
So
to the previous one.
So I think everybody signed it. So is there a motion?
So moved.
Support.
Motion by Councilmember Peterson, support by Councilmember Albrecht. Discussion? Madam Clerk, the roll, please.
Vixen.
Yes.
Salvia.
Yes.
Albrecht.
Yes.
Gould.
Yes.
Harrison.
Yes.
Peterson.
Yes.
Sage.
Yes.
Thank you. Next is
Mayor, could we read it into the public record?
Yes.
Just so that,
I'd be happy to read it.
thank you.
Whereas Americans are served every single day by public servants at the federal, state, county, and city levels, these unsung heroes do the work. Whereas public employees take not only jobs, but oaths. Whereas many public servants, including military personnel, police officers, firefighters, border patrol officers, embassy employees, healthcare professionals, and others, risk their lives each day to service to the people of the United States and around the world. Whereas public servants include teachers, doctors and scientists, trained conductors and astronauts, nurses and safety inspectors, laborers, computer technicians and social workers, finance and public work employees, and countless other occupations. Day in and day out, they provide the diverse services demanded by the American people of their government with efficiency and integrity. And whereas without these public servants at every level, continuity would be impossible in a democracy that regularly changes its leaders and its elected officials. Be it further resolved that the Rochester City Council do hereby designate and announce and proclaim to all citizens and set seal hereto that May 1st through May 7th, 2022 is Public Service Recognition Week. All citizens are encouraged to recognize the accomplishments and contributions of government employees at all levels, federal, state, county, and city, presented this day, April 25th, 2022. So again, thank you to all of our excellent city employees. Pass that down. Thank you. Next is an approval of the minutes, is a consideration of the minutes of the regular meeting of April 11th, 2022.
So moved.
Motion by Councilmember Peterson,
Support with comment.
support by Councilmember Sage. Councilmember Sage.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So on item 10A, our discussion under regular reports and regular business, the compensation study prepared by GovHR. I think it would be completely transparent and complete as far as the narrative and the discussion if we include all verbatim from all council members on that item. So I would make a motion to approve the minutes with revision to include verbatim from all council members on this one discussion item.
Is the maker of the motion good with that?
If they so choose, I'm not sure why. It should have been brought up the night we did that, and I requested it to begin with, if we wanted it all.
So that's a yes.
Well, no, I'm waiting for a response. I
The
mean,
response is simply transparency. So that
it is
that-
transparency.
Exactly, but if only one council member's voice is captured in writing, it doesn't give a complete picture of the entire discussion. So I'm just simply saying, let's include everybody's discussion.
Well, that is fine if you choose to do so, but you were the one who stated before that we shouldn't be putting those all in, and I did based on what I had stated, which was totally opposite of all 6 other council people.
Exactly the point. You made my point.
Yeah, well, you should have said that back then, at the last meeting. It should have been brought up, so it could have all been complete at one time.
Okay, so we're not setting any precedent here. We've asked to revise meeting minutes in the past, so I'm simply asking that.
Okay.
Okay, so there's the amended motion now is to approve the minutes and also adding the verbatim of all the council members. Councilmember Harrison.
Thank you, Mayor. I respect the request and the wish for transparency. I would just like to mention, as I think it was me the last time who brought this up, that the Roberts Rules of Law really don't use minutes for verbatim comments. I think that's what the recordings are for. So I don't see this for either or any council member as being necessary and not in true form to the reason we have minutes in the first place.
And I would, Mayor?
Councilmember Peterson?
Yes, thank you. And I would agree with Councilmember Harrison, except for the fact that I wanted it noted as to why, for the public, why I voted no. And that is why those were asked to be put in the minutes. That is the difference. So,
Further comments?
yeah, I'm not going to approve it.
Madam Clerk, the roll, please.
Vixen,
Yes.
Salvia,
Yes.
Albrecht,
Yes.
Gould,
Yes.
Harrison,
Yes.
Peterson,
No.
Sage.
Yes.
Thank you. Next on to the approval of the consent agenda. First is an authorization for the city manager and the city clerk to sign the MDOT agreement from March 2021. Next is consideration of a special event application from North Oakland Dance Company to hold their dance recital on Sunday, May 15th, the band shell. Next is consideration of special event application from the Rochester PSD to hold downtown sidewalk sales on July 14th through 16th downtown. Next is consideration of a special event application from the Rochester PSD to hold the Dancing in the Street event on Friday, July 15th on West 4th between Main and Walnut. One of my favorite events. And next is the review of the current special event calendar.
So moved.
Motion by Councilmember Peterson,
Motion to discuss.
support by Councilmember Albrecht. Councilmember Albrecht.
I just, on item E, on the event calendar, if you look on the first page, it has June, and maybe if you just tell me if the CBC Dog Wash and Italian are happening in June or July, that might answer my question, but it looks like it's out of chronological order, so I wasn't sure when those are happening. So the bottom of the page has July 23rd, CBC Dog Wash, July 24th, Italian happening. Then you go to the top of the next page, it starts July 14th through 16th, so it's just out of chronological order. So I was just, if there's going to be, if this is up for publication, and when I receive these, I send these over to the Rochester Hills Sister City council members, so I just want to make sure we had a corrected version. Whoever does this, I don't know who does this.
Chief, would you like to comment? Christie, one of the two?
Thank you for pointing out a Excel sheet error, which I will correct.
So is that, is the dog,
July.
those are in July?
Yeah.
Okay.
The dog wash is still tentative.
Yeah. just trying to placeholder that's been asked for.
Thank you. So, City Manager, can we just get a corrected copy of this sent to us, and then we'll?
Sure, happy to work with the chief and get it corrected copy.
I carry mine around all the time, so.
We'll get it in this Friday's manager's report.
No problem, Chief.
All the time? Or just
Well,
most of the time?
it is in my binder here, along with the most recent newsletter, so.
There you go. Madam Clerk, the roll, please.
Vixen,
Yes.
Salvia,
Yes.
Albrecht,
Yes.
Gould,
Yes.
Harrison,
Yes.
Peterson,
Yes.
Sage.
Yes.
Thank you. There's no old business or tabled items. Next is a public hearing. We have a public hearing for comments regarding the consideration of the 2022-2023 fiscal year proposed budget with a millage rate to support it. Does not mean there's a millage rate increase, just the millage that we have already supports this budget. I think I want to make sure we say that. Before we open the public hearing, Mr. City Manager, would you like to make some comments?
Yeah, we do have our finance director. I see him actually just logging in, and I think I saw Marcy a moment ago as well on there. So, again, this is a balanced budget that also has a small surplus. At our next meeting, if there's not any questions or direction from council or from the public, we'll go through a final report and adoption at the first meeting in May.
Mr. City Treasurer, any comments?
Nothing, thank you, Mayor. Just when you're ready for me to give the presentation, I can share that and start that up.
Okay, let's, we'll do the presentation before the public hearing, so you can go ahead.
Perfect, thank you. I'll share that right now. I have everything loaded. Good evening, council. Thank you for letting me do the Zoom tonight. We've had a wedding that's been planned for over 6 months. So I'm currently calling from Florida.
Okay.
Happy Florida to everybody, and specifically Disney World. So it's going pretty well so far. Real quick before I jump in, just to show everyone where you can find it, here's the city's webpage. If you go down to departments, then you'll have in this section here, hopefully you can see the screen. Okay, I'm hoping.
Yes.
Yep, you're good.
Okay, great. All right, perfect. Accounting financial reports. When you click on that, that'll bring you to this page here. And the first two links are both the PowerPoint as well as the budget. And if you click on it and download the budget, you can also come look at it physically at City Hall. The city clerk has it. So please, over the next couple weeks here till we get to the adoption on May 9th, please feel free to give review. And we'll have kind of a fun spoiler alert for tonight, is we're doing kind of a look back. That's the theme tonight, is a look back. And throughout the budget book, you will find these snippets in here. Let me zoom in on this. You will find these snippets, which we found in the vault from 1962-63. So exactly the 60-year look back time, we have all of these snippets, and we put these throughout. We took the snippets of them and put them throughout the budget book with the corresponding departments. So as you kind of go through the book, you can get these kind of look back 60 years ago to what was presented and done back then, which is really, it's got some really cool and interesting pieces of information in it. And some of the things, you know, you read it and you go, man, the same issues they were talking about 60 years ago hasn't changed. Some of those, they still continue on. All right, let me bring up the workbook presentation here. Okay, there we go. Here. One more. All right, we're kicking off tonight with kind of a little bit of front-loaded with the budget information, and then a little bit of comparison as we run through the different departments and sections. So hopefully, can we see the presentation now? Is that showing up all right?
Yes.
Yep, you're good.
Okay, all right. Just want to make sure, I think, let me reshare real quick because it's frozen on mine. Okay. There we go. I think it's now not frozen. Okay, perfect. All right. So we have kind of Rochester's always been a progressive community, and we feel, and this is a quote from it, we feel that the trend will continue. Rochester's accomplishments are made possible through a combination around planning, teamwork, the elected officials, the appointed officials, the village employees at the time, and the public. So that still holds true today. Right, we try to make sure that we keep everything forward-looking, that we're doing the best interests of the taxpayers and residents, business owners, all the constituents in the city, and we take great pride in that. Freeze. I think it's just a long delay is what I think is happening. I'm sorry about that. There we go. Financial report. So pleased to say that in the budget being presented, there's a $29,595 surplus. And so we have a balanced budget. We have a small surplus, and we're just coming out of COVID, right? We have a lot of things happening and a lot of moving parts, but we are in a great position. We are one of very few communities that during a pandemic received still a AAA bond rating. That was that was unheard of in a lot of scenarios. Even high-rated communities were getting downgraded in that just because of the impact from COVID-19. So for the city to, even during a global pandemic, maintaining a strong rating just shows the public, everyone that's involved in the city, from the workers, electeds, public businesses, just how well we're trying to manage and be good stewards of the funds of all of the taxpayers and the community in creating a great place to live. Budget's balanced. We maintain high city services, which is another comment you'll find if you read through the budget. You'll find the comment that the village at the time prides itself in providing a lot of services for the lowest millage rate that it can. And that has not changed to today. We offer a lot of things that other communities do not offer, and we still continue to do that due to sound planning and because we are managing and making sure that we can do as much economies of scale in the process as efficiently as possible. Significant changes for 23. We have a 4.6% increase in residential values. We have state shared revenue increases, and a lot of that part is determined on inflation. So we love and don't love that in the city side at the same time. So as the costs and more people are spending more money in the economy, that percent of state shared revenue goes down to the municipality eventually through a formula. We have the auto parking adjustments with the hourly rates as we roll in that in full shortly here as we kind of wrap that project up. And then we have the last year for our DWSRF plan that was a multi-year plan, putting in roads, sewer lines, water mains. We have our second tranche coming up of the American Rescue Plan dollars, the $695,000, which we should be around the latter part of October is when we'll receive that. And then looking at our building and trades permit revenue, that being close to pre-pandemic levels is fantastic because it shows that everybody's investing and we're moving forward and not slowing down in any of the different indicators that we watch. One of the other highlights that's going to be new this year in the budget book, but I felt was very important. Now, we are always, we budget very conservatively. We don't put in things that we aren't almost positive are going to happen, or that we are for sure, we have a contract, we got told from the state that a certain revenue amount's going to be X dollars, those sort of things. We always budget very conservatively. There's a few things that we're watching for where we do not put it into the budget that we're adopting and proposing for adoption, but it's a big, significant impact. And there's 3 of them in here. So as we look here, the second column here in this graph, you'll see the 29,595 for 22-23. That's the current being proposed budget figures. And then we see over here, as we roll forward, and this is not new, we've been doing multi-year budgeting for a while, we have the deficits. And it's just projections, right? So these are figures that when we started doing multi-year budgeting, looking way out into the future, we've been able to trim and hone in and make adjustments during the current years and even this upcoming budget year so that these keep getting reduced down further and further. As we look forward, three main ones, tax revenue increases. We're already seeing the trend with inflation, which means in the budget, we have about a 3% increase, whereas inflation is showing us that we're going to be capping that this year at 5%. So as we roll forward, and taxes are always lagged a year, so everything that happens this year will affect next year's tax bill, the summer of 23, July's tax bill. That difference in what we have budgeted versus what we're seeing in the economy on trending is this top line here, this property tax revenue increases. That is strictly just the inflation adjustment changes. The second one is similar to that, 5% the state year over year, and part of that is due to the really roaring economy that we have, but as well as the inflation and those items that are going to impact future years. The state does a 2-year projection. They meet and have a revenue conference, and then they say, hey, this is what it's looking like. We're looking at all the indicators, and this is what we're going to give, we think, for state, local municipalities on the state shared revenue. So that's those changes here. And then the third line here, the 125,000 in compounded, that's just normal economic activity in the city. So that's building, that's doing renovations, putting in a new addition, tearing down, rebuild, all those sorts of things. And that's just a normal year. That amount is not from large projects or any one significant investment. On the other slide, when it's talking about some of the building permits and that, we'll talk more about that, but getting to pre-pandemic levels, we're seeing that activity come back. So that means we're going to have additional increases just because the activity is being done now in 22, calendar year 22, which is what's going to affect next year's, which would be 23-24's budget. So there's a bit of a delay, but we're seeing that activity now and we're putting that forward. As we look in the third year, that brings to this number now here, the 62,811, which is a positive 62,811 projected for the third year. And what that means is that things that are happening, the changes, the department heads, administration, everything we're doing is working. We're getting the ship steered in the right direction before, I'm not going to maybe quote Titanic saying before we hit an iceberg, but before we realize anything, we're making the adjustments now for the future. That is the whole point of the long-term multi-year budgeting and planning. As we see where we're going, we make adjustments so that we're heading where we want to head and not in any other direction. Highlight on the city in comparison to others. This lower left graph, essential services and millage, for the public, this is an important one. It's hard to compare municipality to municipality in any one item. For the essential services as a millage, I'm going to give one very easy example. In the city of Rochester, when you pay your taxes, you pay your summer tax bill, you are not billed separately by GFL, which is our trash hauler and recycler. They don't send you a bill. The city pays a monthly amount. They don't have to bill, and it's covered as part of the taxes. Other municipalities do not do this. They do that. They'll either bill you monthly, every 2 months, every 3 months. And when you try to compare living in one or another, well, the other municipality, maybe it has a lower tax rate. Yeah, but you're also paying a bill every month for trash service. So what we do is we kind of take all of those factors and we we convert them into what you would spend as a homeowner in a year, and we convert that into that municipality's millage rate with their taxable value, and then add it together. So when we do all of that for all the various services, we can see that the city, with all the great services and high level of response from police, fire, DPW, leaf pickup, all the great services we have, in a lot of the communities, we're right there neck and neck with the Novis and the Troys and Bloomfield Hills, number 4 here, and we're not far from them. So it is a great value, and that holds true in that look back from the 60 years ago, right? We provide high level of services for as low of a millage rate as we can. That philosophy still is holding true to this day. On the taxable value, this is the biggest driver of the city's budget. And you'll notice that there's not much of a change between last year, 21, and this year for 22. 883 million in taxable value to 884 million in taxable value. The reason is not because the values are all of a sudden becoming flat. It's because of right here. If you look at personal property, the middle column, from 2020, we go from 24 million. In 21, we go to 58 million. And then in 22, it drops back down to 22 million. This is a industrial exemption for taxes that one of the, this was a single filer that did not file in 21. So it became taxable. So in our total amount, as we look year over year, it looks like we're flat, but this amount just means that they reapplied, and they did, and they reapplied and got that exemption put back on. So it's not that we're flat, we still have the increase, but you'll see that change in coming off of the tax revenue. And then because it's an exemption for personal property from the state, it comes back to us in the state formula. They have a formula that reimburses us a significant portion of that. So where we lose it in the, well, not lose, but essentially stay flat in the tax dollar as a whole, we make it back up in the reimbursement from the state for lost revenue. On the pension, one big change that's happened, obviously, is us doing the bonding during the pandemic. And for both of these, OPEB is our retiree health care. We're at 184.2%. And for pension, we're running now at 104%. That's because of the bonding. That's this jump right here. Now, we still have the bond payment. We're still budgeting and having the bond payments in there. But that is the significant change. And when you're looking at it, on what we're monitoring and making sure that the liabilities are taken care of. This is just a quick comparison, and please download the slides. I know they've been handed out as well, but please feel free to look through these in more detail. This is just a quick org chart comparing the two from back then to now. And then as we roll to city council, quick quote, this is my favorite quote of them. A councilman's role is not an easy one. He is called upon to make policy decisions on a complex variety of issues such as planning, zoning, building codes, public works projects, many other technical subjects. Since he represents the citizens of Rochester, he must determine what the people want in determining the best course of action to take. Many things always need doing, and many options are usually offered. It is a councilman's job to determine what should be done and how best to do it. Just a little look back quote, and I don't think there's much changed from then to now. I think it's not easy at times, that is for sure. City Manager's Department, they act as the chief administrative officer for the city, so they help formulate and carry out city council's direction. And they help with implementing the plans, the goals, the objectives, strategies, and also running and making sure the departments have what they need, getting them what they need, and if there's issues and they don't have any of those things, helping to bring that forward to city council to say, hey, we need this, we need to look at doing this, and moving forward with that. On finance, hooray, my favorite slide, not that I'm biased on any of it, but we are the ones that are helping to say, okay, we sit down with administration and with council. Here's what we're, there's goals and directions looking to be set. How do we make that work financially? And that's where we come in. Okay, how do we maximize this? Where can we align the values? Where are there some maybe lost opportunities, and bringing those things forward so that we can manage the reserves, manage the multi-year budgeting, the future revenues that are coming in, and help give those inputs, and then reporting those either quarterly or in like the public hearing tonight, annually, to make sure we're on track where we need to be. Clerks and elections, the city clerk needs no real explanation. We all know the clerk is the official keeper of the city to make sure that our elections always run super smoothly. And that is due to her great work, and Brian and all of the team there, all of the election staff, which does a wonderful job in making sure that we have transparency and integrity and no issues, which is phenomenal. So we, of course, thank all of our team for that. Police department, Walter needs to, of course, have a sneak peek here. There's many things that are still done now that it was a favorite back 60 years ago, such as specifically vacation checks, which is a great service that's still offered to this day, 60 years later, by the police department, where they will make sure to do patrols. If you're out of town, you can tell them the dates you're out. They'll just do some drive-bys, looking around, making sure the house is in order, nothing looks out of line, and keeping an eye out while you're gone, which is always a great thing to have. One thing, though, I'm very sad to see is they no longer issue driver's licenses, which is what's in that picture here. Our telebinocular, which is a device that was used to check the eyesight for driver's license applicants, though I'm sure they would love to still issue driver's licenses. Fire department, man, what are you, of anybody that's gonna be significantly first line impacted by COVID is our first responders. We have a fantastic group of men and women that are leading and being there for us all of the time, day or night. COVID, non-COVID are always there. They do a fantastic job, and we it's just part of what makes this great, from hosting the pierogi dinners for the fundraiser for Ukraine to the pancake breakfast. It's very much ingrained as part of the community. The community loves attending those events and seeing that their tax dollars are being put to good use. One look back item. Number one cause of car fires 60 years ago, and there's many other fun tips here, but that the one for car fires was a light bulb that was placed under the hood of the vehicles so that on the cold mornings they would be left on overnight, and the cold mornings it would help them start. Well, for the 21 car fires, putting that light bulb under the, on the engine of the car ended up just catching the car on fire. So we've come a long way. We have auto starts and things. We don't need to put light bulbs on the vehicles anymore, but it's just kind of a nice thing to see kind of how those things have evolved. Protective services, this is also known as the building department. They are in charge. Randy McClure is our building official. He's in charge for turning around all of the permits that have been turned in for building. Their goal is to do those from turning in, issuing them, and getting them within 7 days. Also processing all the other permits in his department, electrical, plumbing, mechanical, everything runs through there. So we get the monthly reports and annual reports, and we watch those for the activity to see how we're doing and how things are going. Public Works, if you walk through the city, pretty much everything you can see or experience in a lot of ways is DPW. Streets, Parks and Rec, the leaf pickup, the vehicle maintenance that they have, the cemetery, all of those things our great men and women at the Public Works Department are the ones that are in charge of handling all of those things, and they do a fantastic job. And they comprise of the majority, between all the departments added together, the majority of the city's budget is in all of these areas here. When you get to the Water and Sewer Department, 60-year look back, right? We're building and had our first year of operation of the new treatment plant, which was addressed in here as 800 East 3rd Street. So it'd be right around the Letica curve now. And we no longer have that sewer treatment. That was decommissioned in the early 2000s. And we still, though, to this day, maintain our water supply. The water plant for the west half of the city, pretty much west of Letica, handles the water supply in the fields there with the treatment plant. Interesting note, even 60 years ago, in here, Rochester could, in fact, obtain Detroit water if it so desired. However, it has been estimated that the water rates would have to be approximately double to finance the change. Fast forward to today, it's about 4.5 times. So there is still a significant difference. And then, of course, it's not Detroit Water anymore. It's Great Lakes Water Authority. So it's just kind of interesting to read through some of these on how we are always looking at where our water's coming from. What's the best source of it? Can we expand it? Can we treat it? Those items there. Boards and commissions, not everything is dollars. And the city in the budget, a lot of the items, the goals, the objectives are a bunch of dedicated residents and business owners that sit on these boards and commissions, whether it's the Parking Advisory Board, Planning Commission, City Beautiful, the Tree Committee, rah-rah. I mean, we have all of these boards and they really help provide a invaluable service to make sure that things for each of the boards, different duties and designations of what they're in charge of, that they make sure the voices of the people are heard and carrying out city business. And it's fantastic to have them, all of them be a part of this. Our look at the year ahead. As we know, we're wrapping up the DWSRF, so we're currently working on the 4th Street, as we'll see. We have West 4th being done. We're also going to be starting Helen this year. So that's one of the last streets in the project, and that's a full reconstruct project going from Helen at University all the way down to South Helen to the very end, that entire street. So that's going to continue. We're going to keep working on the annual sidewalk repair replacement program. So our Department of Public Works, they walk all the sidewalks, make sure things are checked, see what slabs need to be replaced, where are trip hazards, where do we need to replace slabs, where do we need to just do some work on them, maybe move them or adjust them instead of replacing them, and they mark all those, and we continue that program. The tree plantings, this is one of those things that comes out of one of the committees, right? Tree committee, we have the tree plantings. I know we're going to continue talking about those, and one note from the look back is they talk about planting 200 saplings at a nursery to be able to use in the future as development happens to plant them wherever is needed on public property. So those 200 trees 60 years ago are, I don't know exactly where they're at. They're somewhere in the city. But that's one of the things that is so great about the town. When you look at our canopies and some of the neighborhoods, that's what everyone loves, is the tree canopy. And it's those types of decisions that they make and that we're making now that's going to affect what Rochester looks like in 60 years. Even something as simple as, let's plant some trees. So it's always worth noting some of the impacts in the future. Of course, we have upcoming more details about the All Abilities Park. So we received a grant for building from Representatives Slotkin, as well as, Congresswoman Slotkin, as well as the state from the Michigan DNR Trust Fund. And it's still, now that we've received notice that it's being funded, we're still drawing up the plan. So we will make sure to share with the public all of the details. I'm going to work with the city manager on finding a spot on the webpage just to post everything we've done so far, just to kind of keep it all in one spot, as well as some timelines. We don't have any, it's not going to start breaking ground tomorrow. There's still a lot of steps and decisions that have to be made. But now that we've received funding, we're now working through those next steps. So we took it from concept and now we're taking the rest of the plan through. And then, of course, we have Art in the Park and then the new mural on the GBB building, which is the gray block building in the middle of the park, kind of right across from the pond and just west of the pavilion, kind of where Albertson dead ends there. There's a DPW building there, so we'll have the mural on there. Last slide here, we have just the comparison, just for fun. There was a big talk of urban renewal and East Street project. And the upper pictures are just showing downtown back seasons, greetings time, with Big Bright Light Show today. And then the overhead map that you'll see, the lower right is this year. And so just for reference, this is the library building. And then this curved street here is Letica. So just to kind of give you some bearings, this is the section that was referred to in the book about the urban renewal East 3rd project. So just kind of seeing of what it looked like then. And the pictures on the left are from the county. So they provided, we even have, I think it was 1963 is that picture, the overhead. We have the old pictures in the archives. So we're able to kind of look at the then and now of kind of how that is laid out. So that, thank you, Mayor, we'll conclude that. I'm happy to stop sharing the screen.
Thank you for that presentation, Anthony.
Back to you.
Any questions of the treasurer before we open up the public hearing? Councilmember Harrison.
Thank you, Mayor. I would just like to thank Anthony and all of administration, as well as the budgeting committee, Councilmember Albrecht, myself, and Mayor Pro Tem Salvia. Now that this is up and available, I just want to encourage the public, as well as any council members who weren't serving on that committee, to please reach out if you have questions or comments or concerns. I know that our city manager has offered to do one-on-ones with city council members, and if the public has any questions, to please reach out to one of us. Our emails are available. Thank you.
Very good. Anything further? Thank you, Anthony. I know the burning question is no, I was not on the city council in 1962. But I did see that Arthur Cox was the city attorney, and he was the city attorney when I first got onto council. Then his daughter, Sarah Cox, was the attorney for a long time. And then when she left, our current attorney, Jeff Cox. So we've had 3 city attorneys in the last
60 years.
60 years. So that's a high continuity job, I would say.
One of your kids could enter, Sarah.
Yeah. All right, so is there any correspondence, Madam City Clerk? Okay, so we are now going to open the public hearing at 7:43. Would anybody like to comment on the city budget? Brian? No?
I'm not seeing any public comment.
Okay. The public hearing is closed. Mr. City Manager, do we need a motion to accept this or to set or do we need anything?
Not tonight. We did the public hearing notice for tonight. If there's any comments or feedback, we take them, and we'll be presenting for adoption at the first meeting in May.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Salvia.
Thank you. I just wanted to thank Treasurer Maggio for putting this together and the hard work on the budget, and all the team in the finance department. And especially thank you for making the presentation remotely. Technology can be our friend, and I think it works just fine. It was fine that you weren't here. You knew well ahead of time you were going to be out of town. It was just fine. So thank you for everything you did for this.
Councilmember Peterson?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So in the minutes, so it will be reflected, can we make sure that under A, it just says with the current millage rate instead of with a millage rate? So they know that it's the current one and we did not change that.
Very good.
Oh, Mayor, if I could?
Yes, Anthony?
I just want to make that clear because that question did come up to me. I want to make sure everyone knows as well. In Michigan, we have a law, it's essentially the truth in taxation. So the way the public notice reads, with the millage to support the request, that is all state language required. And what that allows is the city, if you do a public hearing, you don't have to do a public hearing. You can just skip it and adopt a budget and go on with it. There's two different Headley factors that can be used. And one of them reduces the rate faster than the other one. And that's the one where if you do not do a public hearing and put the language with the millage rate to support it. So in the millage rate that's being proposed for the budget, it has no change in it from the current year now. There's not an increase being requested or anything like that. It is just to make sure that we're covering the correct public notice requirements in our Truth in Taxation Act. So just to maybe help clarify some of that.
And Madam Clerk, can you make that known in the minutes?
Yes,
Thank
and
you.
I'll get with Anthony, make sure it's correct.
Thank you. So again, thank you, Anthony. Thank you to the staff. And thank you to the Budget Committee for all that hard work and all those meetings. Really appreciate that. Next on to, there are no legislative deliberations. Next to the report on regular businesses first is a purchase of an emergency generator transfer switch for City Hall. Mr. City Manager?
Yep. So most of council knows that we do have a backup generator here at City Hall. What you might not know is if that fails, we don't have a plug-in, basically, so that we could have either a generator or a piece of equipment actually dropped off. So what is presented tonight is an emergency transfer switch that would allow us basically to have a plug-in. And then that plug-in would allow us to not have a issue once the power actually came back on, so that we wouldn't have an issue. This would allow both our 911 operating center to continue to function, and that's the main reason, but also our City Hall to function as either a heating or cooling center as well.
Very good. Mayor, Councilmember Albrecht.
Can I ask questions now or before a motion's made?
Yes.
Okay. I know I brought this up before when we were looking at fire department and police department asks, and then again, when you go to the scorecard on, page 38 of the packet, you see this comes up with 5 points, and again, this is something I would support for all the reasons. I think this is motherhood and apple pie, but you look at this scorecard, and now this is a third example. Previous ones were something that the police department was asking for some, I think it was the bulletproof vests or the
Ballistic
Kevlar-
vests,
those
Kevlar.
vests. And then we've had one for the fire department now with the DPW. So this might be something we look at to see if this is still an appropriate scorecard with, things coming before us. Because, just reading the email, that was prepared by the DPW staff, Jason, this makes sense. We want the redundancy, so I would support this, but I just wanted to call out the scorecard. Probably we need to look at that again.
Mayor Pro Tem Salvia.
Thank you. So I support the need to purchase this. However, my question is, the request is for a sole contractor. Lotus Electric is listed as a sole contractor for the municipal building. And I don't see anything in our purchasing code that describes a single source process. We don't have a single source letter process. So I don't support this without a competitive bid. So I don't know, City Manager, if you want to address that?
Mr. City Manager.
Yeah, typically, we have an agreement for the electrical, plumbing, and other work, and that vendor is then the one that we've actually dealt with. I can check with Jason. I don't know if you happen to know, Jason's our superintendent, if alternative vendors were looked at, but my understanding is they contacted our electrician, which in this particular case is Lotus currently, and this is the quote for the work that we received.
Yeah, I asked the request to not research other vendors because we've had issues with electrical, other people coming in. This particular contractor works on all of our SCADA monitoring, our pump stations, our water wells. He knows our electrical. I don't want to risk. And I've asked around pricing of parts and things like that, so I felt confident asking to, surpass that bidding process so that we get a good vendor to do the work.
I can understand that thought and that intent, that you have a good working relationship with them, and, but I can also see problems if, you get too close working with somebody, familiarity, there could be problems, which is why we have a process that requires RFPs. I'm not comfortable approving this without a quote.
Question, is this an emergency thing, or can it wait for a?
It's not
A quote.
true right now emergency. Over the past few years, the generator's been replaced many years ago. We ran into an issue where we had an outside electrician working on the generator. There was a problem, so because it was their problem, they brought a standby generator, hooked up, and we were running off that generator for about 2 weeks until parts came in. So that's why I felt it was important to get it, and then
Mayor Pro Tem?
So from a purchasing standpoint, there is a process that we could adopt into our procedures called a single source letter, which, acknowledges that we're okay having a single source because of maybe it's technology or relationships, or they know our equipment, but we don't have that policy in place. So, really what you're asking is for council to kind of waive our normal procedures and kind of accept the responsibility for the prices as they are.
yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Sage?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So a couple questions. How would we institute a single source opportunity here? And would that come before council and we'd have to vote on that? And then secondly, I would have to say, having worked in power generation for a few years, you're right. This is not an emergency now, but when it becomes an emergency, it's an emergency. So it's a redundancy on your redundancy. Your generator is a redundancy, right? This provides you the flexibility, should that fail as your redundancy, you have the ability to transfer power to a standby portable unit, which then keeps the city running. So.
We actually have that portable unit available at Public Works.
Great.
It's for the water treatment plant, the sewer lift stations, would be now City Hall, parking structure east. So that's why I found the dollars in this year's budget to do it, and kind of trying to move ahead to get it done.
Mayor, if I can answer.
Yeah, Mr. City Manager.
Okay, yep. So the first thing is I would be happy to work with our finance team to actually update our purchasing policy to have the single source language brought before our Budget and Finance Committee and then before council. I've actually done that in 2 other communities for the technology and a few other examples that were cited. So definitely that would be good for this particular instance, as well as potentially in the future to have that language in there. Secondly, also happy to work with the Public Works staff on getting 2 other quotes for this particular one and bringing this back here quickly. Again, I can work on both of those simultaneously with our staff. And I think the purpose or the goal was to get this using our current remaining dollars. So long as this vendor and maybe the other ones, again, we'll get quotes for this particular work and bring back that to council.
Councilmember Peterson?
Yes, and to the point that Councilmember Albrecht made, back at our budgeting workshop, I did ask for us to have new scorecards done up for the police and fire, and then at this point, then we would add the DPW to that list. So we don't have this because it looks like we shouldn't be approving something, as we've been talking about this for the last 3 years of these scorecards not working.
Yep, so staff is working on the police and fire. It would be a change now, and we'll work with the Public Works. It's starting to get to a point where the scorecards are then almost not working for any department if I get to half. Again, I know the scorecards are a useful tool. Again, we identify the strengths, the weaknesses, the opportunities, and the threats. We've also incorporated some other things. We now have a different tool for personnel. There's potentially a different tool for maybe emergency services. And again, if we're pulling in Public Works, that, might fall underneath that as well. So, again, happy to work on and present council with various tools, and we might just need to use the specialized tool for that request as we would come forward.
Councilmember Sage.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a follow-up question, Jason. When you called around, was there a wide swing in pricing?
It's real hard to get quotes.
Okay.
It took, a month and a half to get this quote because everybody's backed up and no employees and, this is another cost of materials and wires going up, cabinets for the switch, all this stuff is, so I just steadily moved along with Patrick and we got the price. I'm very comfortable with this vendor. Like I say, I've never had a failure that we didn't know could happen, so I've had this particular gentleman on standby when we do something temporary. I mean, we're waiting almost 2 months for parts. So when this generator failed out here at City Hall, that we had to wait like 2 months and it came from the other side of the country and, nothing is easy anymore. It's very difficult.
Okay. Councilmember Albrecht.
I respect what Mayor Pro Tem Salvia had to say, and I agree we need to add the single source language, and City Manager Wing said they could get 2 more bids. I'm just wondering if we're comfortable approving this one with the condition that the single source language would be added. So with that, I'd like to make a motion to approve the purchase of and install a 1,000 amp manual transfer switch to the municipal building for an amount not to exceed $35,631.28, and waiving the competitive bidding process for this example only, knowing that we will get language put in going forward for single source language on future projects.
Support.
Motion by Councilmember Albrecht, support by Councilmember Gould. Further discussion, Councilmember Peterson.
Yes, so, Jason, how soon can this be installed?
I called him last week and told him I wanted to double check the prices because prices are changing day by day. So I wanted to bring something accurate to you folks. And he said as soon as I get the approval, he has most of the parts. He'll have to order a few things, so hopefully before July 1.
So we're still a few months out from that, but the way the weather's been and the electricity has been, we're probably going to experience an outage then.
Yeah, and municipal building is on a more regular maintenance program. It's, quarterly instead of once every 6 months like all the other generators are. So that's why I'm a little confident that this one's being overseen more often and frequently. We don't have to worry about hooking a spare generator up. So.
Further discussion.
I do have one more question. So Jason, would you include the transfer switch in your preventive maintenance agreement with whatever vendors currently providing?
Yeah, there's not much to
Right.
maintain with that, but they would just check it and make
Correct.
sure that it's transferring properly.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk, the roll, please.
Vixen,
Yes.
Salvia,
Yes.
Albrecht,
Yes.
Gould,
Yes.
Harrison.
Yes.
Peterson.
Yes,
Sage.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll get it done as soon as I can.
Actually, you have to approve the emergency repair to well number 6. Mr. City Manager.
Yes, as we're performing maintenance, we have various wells. Number 6 was taken offline for us to perform this maintenance. In your packet, I want to say on page 41, actually it's 42, there's several photos. Again, talking with our water foreman and our public works staff, due to the nature of this being consumable water, this was a health and safety issue. We felt delaying this was potentially problematic. They did have the parts on hand, and so I did authorize the $32,774.11 for repairs. And per our policy, when I exercise the emergency use, I need to bring that forward to City Council at the next meeting, which is tonight's meeting. So tonight, I'm asking for, requesting for the after approval of the $32,774.11 to Peerless Midwest for the repairs that were done to well number 6. And again, I think it was wise that our staff looked at it, and that's why we do preventative maintenance and do these checks. As you can see, we would have had a failure probably pretty quickly. So again, I'm glad that we did move forward, and I just wanted to share the photos, in the packet that's Public Works, and it was pretty telling.
Councilmember Peterson.
So that's just from water corrosion?
Correct.
Wow. Bad water.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion by
Support.
Councilmember Peterson, support by the Mayor Pro Tem. Discussion. Madam Clerk, the roll, please.
Vixen,
Yes.
Salvia,
Yes.
Albrecht,
Yes.
Gould,
Yes.
Harrison,
Yes.
Peterson,
Yes.
Sage.
Yes.
Thank you. Now we receive a report from the various boards and commissions. First is a report from the Sister City Committee. Councilmember Albrecht, would you like to?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. If you don't mind, part of the Sister City agenda was also the Memorial Day Parade, so could I give an update
Yes.
on that as part of the, okay. So the Sister City Committee is made up of Rochester Hills Council members David Blair, Teresa Mangioli, and David Walker. I'm joined by Councilmember Amanda Harrison and Doug Gould, Council members Amanda Harrison and Doug Gould. We met on Tuesday, April 12th, and the first thing on the agenda was a Memorial Day Parade, but I'm going to leave that for the last to go over a couple other things. We asked at the previous meeting for update on Innovation Hills progress. Again, it's a great park that we share, we not share, it's in their city, but we go to it, and just like they come to our municipal park. They had some great plans. This year, they're putting in a ranger station so that the rangers there have a place to get out of the elements at points in time. They're putting in a Phase 2 playground that should be in by August of this summer with 10 new pieces. And then further down the road, there's a part of the park that goes across the river to sort of a forestry area, and they're going to put in a rope bridge. They're asking for $500,000 from the state for that, so this is further down the road. The other issue with Innovation Hills is the area across the street is sort of vacant land. It's not being used, so it's become the unofficial parking lot for Innovation Hills. At some point, that may be developed. That may then take away that parking, which would create a need for additional parking in Innovation Hills. They didn't have an answer for that, but just thought that that was something that they should start looking at as a city. We then talked about, they also provided an update on construction at Avon Road and DeQuinder, and that is on schedule to be done by August of this summer with the one roundabout. The second roundabout, I don't have the date, but is further down the road. And again, you can get an update on that through the, there's a website that you can even watch it on TV. We talked about dog parks again. We're going to look at some of the dog parks in Lake Orion, Farmington, Troy, just to see how they operate. Again, we don't have the land or space here in Rochester to do it. Preliminary, we're looking at, how big of a dog park we would need, where would it be, and where would be in Rochester Hills at one of their areas where they have a little more land. Blaine, I don't know if you had heard from Pam Olson in Rochester Hills.
I haven't yet.
Okay, we do 4 newsletters a year, and at these meetings, we exchange newsletters. The city of Rochester Hills does 2 a year. So their next one is spring and summer. So we were going to get Pam and Laura together. Evidently, that hasn't happened yet. So their newsletter is going on right now, and they've withheld a half a page for Rochester to put some news in there. We want to do a better job of sharing what's going on in our city with the residents of Rochester Hills and vice versa. So that, Rochester Hills residents come to our city, our downtown, our parks, and vice versa. We go to some of the Rochester Hills. So we wanted to sort of cross-pollinate our newsletters, and Pam Olson is the one that is working on that. So I'll follow up with you in real time tomorrow. Then we also wanted to talk the chief's calendar that I mentioned earlier. We want to see if we can do that on an electronic version where they can share that with their residents also. Because most of the things are events in our downtown, events in our parks, where, we have the downtown we have the regional downtown, and we have a park that people come from all around. So we spent a lot of time on that. And then we talked about, we didn't go back 60 years, but we did talk about that there used to be an event where the city councils got together for a luncheon or a dinner at some point during the year. So I know Council Member Harrison had reached out to see if anybody remembered that, but we thought that might be a good idea to have a social, and what we would do at that meeting was that the Sister City Committee members would provide a little update, a little more in depth than from what I'm providing tonight to all the council members, and just, so that we are, we're working together for the area. So I'll pause there if there's any comments before I get into the Memorial Day Parade. Okay. So then we spent a lot of time on the Memorial Day Parade, and again, this group is also now on the Memorial Day Committee. So we had a meeting 2 days later for our second Memorial Day Parade Committee. Then I have another one tomorrow, is our next one, and then we'll have one more before Memorial Day. But as of Thursday, April 14th, we had 5 sponsorships out of 14 available. So we had raised already just shy of $4,000 with another $5,000 remaining. When I spoke to Maggie yesterday, we have 3 more coming in, 3 more people, 5 more sponsorships, or 3 more organizations. So we're hoping to sell those all out. Again, Vito Anthony Holmes is the presenting sponsor, and then there's others that were listed. We have Rick Thalman, who I just met at this meeting. He oversees the Christmas parade. He is the person that makes sure everybody's in order, sort of the logistics of the parade, who's going first, who's going second, where you stage it, everything else. So he's done that for the Christmas parade, where they stage over at Stony Creek High School and then obviously march down Rochester Road. So he's, thank goodness we have him coordinating this. So at our meeting tomorrow, he will give the order of events and the logistics for that, so we'll have more of that. We will be honoring Gold Star families, as I think Mayor Pro Tem Salvi had mentioned, or somebody at one of the meetings, having people hold signs or pictures, of veterans of prior wars, and so we were encouraging that. Any elected officials who are walking in the parade will be given. We're all going to have a batch of flags. Those are all purchased so we can hand out to the children or whoever as we walk the mile and 3/10 or 3/10 to from Adams High School up to the Veterans Tribute. We're also going to encourage local children to decorate their bikes and ride along, especially the children and the homeowners there. We did acknowledge back in 2019 that Blaine with the DPW provided 24 barricades and set them up. So I think Rick is going to reach out, if he hasn't already, in terms of that, sort of an in-kind support. We're looking at getting a flyover of some type. One of the Terry Gonzer, again, it's a maybe, not a for sure, but it would be great. And then we are going to do the memorial tribute, the boots, rifle, and helmet that I think people are familiar with at the ceremony. So we planned the ceremony. We figured if the parade kickoff will be 11:30. It'll take us an hour and a half for all the parade participants to get to the tribute, and then there's a 45-minute ceremony where Vito Pamplona, as the presenting sponsor, will speak, as will Mayor Bixson and Mayor Barnett and Oakland Township Supervisor Dominic, his last name, and then we'll do God Bless American Taps, and it'll be about a 45-minute ceremony. So it's becoming a reality. We're looking forward to this, and I guess the point I want to make on the fundraising is that we're not just raising funds for the parade this year. The parade, the funds we raise are going into a 501c3 foundation. We're raising additional money because this parade needs to go on for the next 10, 15, 20 years. So we will have more money this year than we need, which then becomes it won't be our seed money for next year. I think we can pay for the next year or two just based on budgets, and we want to continue this, create a tradition that in the past, individual business owners, I think it was the Medetz family was sort of the drivers of this parade back in 2019. Beyond that, before that, I don't have notes on who did that. So we feel that, again, the three communities working together, Rochester Hills, Rochester, Oakland Township, along with the Veterans Tribute, that this will be a tradition for years to come, like the Christmas parade. That's it from the sister committee.
Thank you very much, Mark. Excellent job. Any questions? Okay, next on to a report from RARA, Councilmember Albrecht.
Thank you. This one won't be as long. We did have I've always been giving you the sort of the update month to month, so I told you last month that we would probably fall short in April because March was so much better than the pre-COVID numbers. But the great thing is that we didn't fall off that much. So what I did was I took the 4 months of January, February, March, April 2019 registrations, pre-COVID, well before COVID, and the January, February, March, April registrations, not reservations, excuse me, for the same period for this year. And we had, back pre-COVID was 3,400. This year we came in at just under 3,400, 3,364. So we're right on track. And again, the May numbers we're tracking higher. So I think, knock on wood, RARA is back to pre-COVID participation. We then had, if you go by the 480 East 2nd building, the sign is up, but as of the 13th, there was not an online presence on Collier's for this property. However, they gave us a report that from when the sign went up on around from March 25th to April 13th, they had over 40 inquiries already. We had one owner of an investment group attend the meeting and speak on behalf of his interest. But again, they'll all go through the same due diligence process that we've set up with Collier. So again, more to come on that. And then the last thing, we just codified a new policy on resident versus non-resident fee policy because residents use RARA. With non-residents, there was no documented what's the additional cost because we're paying for it through our taxes. What should non-residents have to pay? So we put in some language in terms of that, which was approved by the board. That's it, Mayor.
Thank you. Next is a report from the City Beautiful Commission. Councilmember Harrison.
Thank you, Mayor. I think the most exciting news from the CBC right now is that our mural has begun taking shape in the municipal park. It looks amazing so far. I ran by there the other day, and Louise, our artist, is making great progress. She's expected to finish next week, actually, so she works quickly. We also discussed as a committee possibly reshaping our mission statement to be more reflective of the values and the projects that we've been tackling. We've been really art and plant focused, so we just started discussing whether or not we wanted to revisit our mission statement to be more reflective of the work we've been doing. And a lot of that work has taken place with the Rochester Pollinators Subcommittee. I know Marilyn Trent is speaking tonight, actually, to the Southfield Public Library on native plants and starting your own gardens. Plants for the cemetery garden have been ordered, and one bench has been approved that will go in near the mausoleum. And we're also working on the cost for drip irrigation in that area. March 28th, there was a presentation at the Rochester Hills Public Library, much like the one happening tonight in Southfield. We had over 80 in attendance. School presentations are beginning for students to learn how to start their own gardens. And we're also working with homeowners associations to do rain gardens and detention ponds to reduce sludge. So those presentations are happening, and we're also working directly with Shadow Woods, that neighborhood. We have a fundraiser tentatively scheduled for July 23rd. We're interested in doing another dog wash. It was very successful last year, and we are interested in doing that again this year. And we have a couple of nominations for a good neighbor, but I don't believe we've selected one yet. And then the last thing I wanted to mention, and I meant to bring this up to our city manager prior to this, but there are arrows being spray painted for our races in town. I noticed some when I'm out in the park, and some of the other members on the committee have. It sounds like Mayor Pro Tem has noticed them as well. I'd like for them to not be spray painted if that is possible. It's kind of an eyesore in the park. So that was noted at the meeting, and we were hoping that maybe we can chat with these race organizers about using something that'll wash away.
I think the chief is raising his hand. My understanding is the spray paint, go ahead, chief, come on up. The spray paint that they're using is a chalk-based one, so with a heavy rain, I believe it does wash away, but chief probably has a little bit more.
Supposed to watch away.
And they're not washing away.
Exactly right. We've actually had one race where that happened last year, and they're still out there.
Yeah.
So, and it is a chalk-based paint. So we have asked, and it's something that's actually in the special event application that talks about that, and we've asked that particular group not to replicate that in the future, so.
Thank you,
So
thank you.
we're on it.
Thanks, Chief.
Thanks, Chief. Mayor Pro Tem Salvia.
Yes, on the City Beautiful update, thank you. Did we do a press release for the mural? When I was chatting with Louise, the artist, Saturday, she was handing out little cards directing people to the city website. That was the only place that she could find outside of Facebook. But she wasn't sure if there was very much information on the city website. Obviously, lots of people are interested in what's going on, who funded it, et cetera. So if we haven't done a press release, if we could do something so the public knows the history a little bit.
Yeah, happy if, Rachel, if she didn't work on one with Laura, I'm happy to work with the commission and our staff to get one done.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Harrison. Next is a report from the Tree Committee. Councilmember Albrecht.
Here's my trifecta. This is it. So hopefully 60 years from now, when the finance director is doing a presentation, pulls up the pictures from this group, they'll say that this tree committee planted a lot of trees, and those have now formed a tree canopy. So that was quite a bit of the focus. I know Nick, I was just checking, Nick's not on tonight?
No.
Okay. The things we talked about, because I just want to get an update on it, we approved, not approved, we reviewed the plantings for Letica Drive, and Nick was able to get a great, the gentleman went with Nick and they walked the whole area, and we'll be planting 27 trees, and it was supposed to happen any day now. I know it didn't happen today because I drove down that to get here, but hopefully very soon there'll be 27 trees planted, a variety of trees that, that they had set aside, and according to Nick, these were good trees. This was the Sherman Nursery Farms is doing that one. We then talked about the community garden Sugar Maple Grove update. We had tagged some trees that were going to go into the community garden that unfortunately were sold from underneath us. So Nick did some scrambling, and we have 30 trees now tagged. At a good price, $850 a tree. So we'll be spending about $25,000 to plant trees in the Sugar Maple Grove. That's down the road a little bit. So between those two areas, about 60 trees will be added to beautify our city on Letica Drive and the community garden. Melissa Weiss, who has a position, similar position with Leader Dogs for the Blind, has sort of taken over our press handling for the tree committee, and she presented a lot of ideas, in fact sent to all of us some postings we're encouraged to make this week on Facebook in advance of Arbor Day, which is this Friday, and I invite you to, we will be having the planting at 10 a.m. on Friday, and we're going to be doing this in the municipal park. Two oak trees near the sand volleyball court off Ludlow, where we recently had to remove a large oak. So that's going to be done. We're working with the local press to, again, take pictures like we did last year, but then talk about these two projects, the Letica Drive project and the community garden project, to show that, again, we're a tree city for the 8th year in a row. We're continuing to plant trees and develop our canopy for 60 years from now when they're going to be talking about us.
And probably just parking in the community house parking lot.
Yep.
For that event.
That's it, Mayor.
What day is that?
Friday, this Friday at 10 a.m.
The 29th.
Next, we have a report from the Pink Creek Trailway Commission. Councilmember Sage.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We celebrated a retirement on the trail. Chris Gray, after 7 years as the assistant trail manager, has retired, and she's being replaced by an executive assistant that will hopefully, through our succession plan, grow into the job and become the assistant trail manager. The Friends of the Pink Creek Trail gave a presentation to the DDA this past week at their meeting to engage the merchants here in town to be a part of the National Trails Day event. It starts in Lake Orion, but works its way down to Rochester, and we're hopeful that some of the merchants here will be part of the passport book that we're developing that offer incentive to come into their stores. And finally, the Oakland County came back to us and with some revised rates. So when you're on the trail, you notice that we have both a bike patrol and a mounted patrol. They have since consolidated the rates of both of those services, and at the same time provided a 37% increase in those costs. So to cover that, we basically adjusted our budget, if you will. So we normally budget for 500 hours of those type services on the trail. So we backed that down to 400 with the opportunity to still continue the 500. So I would anticipate in the next fiscal year budgeting cycle that the trail will reach out to every one of the municipalities for a modest increase in our tithing to the trail so that we can support Oakland County's mounted services and bike patrol services. And then finally, a request from the trail to the city. It's that time of year to grade the trail, and they're hoping that we can have all municipalities complete that activity by May 15th. So I think last year we coordinated with Rochester Hills, correct?
We did, yep.
Okay, so hopefully we can reach out and do that again.
Councilmember Albrecht.
I neglected to acknowledge that we are doing Arbor Day in conjunction with the City Beautiful Commission. Rachel Williams was at our meeting, so this is a partnership between the Tree Committee and the City Beautiful Commission. I would have been remiss without mentioning their support and partnership that we have with them.
Thank you, Councilmember Sage. Next, we have a report from the Downtown Development Authority. Councilmember Harrison.
This was a very exciting meeting, so I feel a little bad that everyone wasn't there because it's a lot of teasers for what's to come to council next. We had a presentation of a proposed entertainment venue that wants to come to the city. They're looking at the Shoe-In Village, the Village Shoe-In area, and they just wanted to get feedback from the DDA on how they felt about this project and how it would fit into our community. It was something that I was excited to hear about. Music venue seems like it would meet a demand in the community. So we got like a good overview for that project. And then we also got a sneak peek at a dementia-friendly community presentation brought to us from Beaumont Health Systems. This is thanks to the partnership that our fire department has with Beaumont Health that the council has approved. It was getting feedback from businesses if this is something that they are interested in pursuing, this dementia-friendly community. There's a lot of steps to it, so it's not just businesses, it's libraries, our fire department, our police department. I believe our fire department already received the training for this, and our police department, and they found it very successful and useful, and we're glad to have it. And I believe the two chiefs will be bringing this to city council in the near future after they've collected all the feedback that they need from all the stakeholders to then bring to us to see if this is something that we're interested in as a council. We also talked about a Main Street Conference that's coming up. It's the week of May 15th, so we actually won't have a meeting in May for the DDA. And I think that is the majority of what we covered in that meeting, unless there's anything to add, Mayor.
No, I think that was a great report. I think that music thing was exciting, and I think what I liked to hear was that it was going to be comedy clubs and dueling pianos and things like that. It was kind of entertainment, but family-oriented, and it wasn't going to be outrageously expensive, and it wasn't going to be like Motley Crue or.
No Motley Crue.
Not that there's anything wrong with that, right? I mean, so it was pretty exciting, and they've done it other places successfully.
Yes, and it looked very high-end and very fitting for Rochester.
Councilmember Sage.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was really impressed. I read through that packet and their proposal and how much consideration they gave to the city. Number one being, obviously, it's an ideal location to engage our parking system. But that was one of their priorities in presenting this concept to the city. I really appreciated things like that.
And they had a very good plan on sound, which obviously will be a major issue because it is near the neighborhoods.
Good.
So, coming attractions. Next is a report from the Planning Commission. Councilmember Sage.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. 3 site plans were reviewed. The first being for an installation of a water for injection still at the Pfizer building. This was approved after we'd had multiple meetings on this, and that was approved. We also have had multiple meetings on a site plan at the Forest Ridge apartment complex to install carports. And we finally got to an approval status on this with the contingency that they will present a revised drawings and site plan based on the recommendations from both Planning Commission and the city planner. They agreed. The final site plan we reviewed was for the temporary installation of a permanent, not permanent, but a standing tent structure at the community house to assist in their operations while they're under renovation with some, I think that's the intent, plus to expand their opportunity for events. That was approved. The public hearing for that site plan will be on May 2nd. And finally, we agreed that we would coordinate, the Planning Commission will coordinate with City Council and City Administration for Vidya to provide us the City Planning 101, if you will, training at a later date.
With an emphasis on what's going to happen with the Harrison building.
Right.
Potentially. It could be coming our way. I would say that was the most well-studied carports in the history of planning commissions, I would say. So they are coming. Thank you, Councilmember Sage. Next, for new business for referral and miscellaneous, public comment. Any further public comment out there? Brian? Doesn't,
I'm not seeing any, thank you.
okay. Thank you. Next, we have a receipt of the check register reports, and then the city manager's update.
Thank you, Mayor. Check register reports are from April 7th and the 14th, and my update you. We did have our new employee starting in the building and planning department. Rose McKinney started, and she has already assimilated quite well with our staff. I was working with her actually today as we're getting the packet out for our planning commission tomorrow. So with Nick being out, she's like, all right, who do I talk to? And I was like, well, that's me. And we tied that together, and we'll be getting that information to the Planning Commission and to Vidya shortly. Both of our other two candidates, I learned today that they did pass both the physical and the medical, so they're both still scheduled to start on May 3rd. So we'll have our new deputy city manager, as well as our new public services, special projects / economic development director person starting next week. Our Wage and Benefit Committee was able to have its initial meeting this past Friday. We'll have some additional information here shortly, have our next meeting in early May before the next council meeting. We have confirmed that we will have enough soil so that we can stay on track for our ribbon cutting for the garden. So that is still scheduled for Monday, May 16th at 3 p.m. We have coordinated with the Dinosaur Hill staff, and this is a time that both they prefer. And again, this allows, our public works staff that, quite honestly, almost all of them have participated, and it's a point of pride. So I'm happy to see all those individuals be able to take place as our standard day concludes at 3:30, so they would be able to participate at 3 o'clock. Other than that, I do want to note, I actually was able to work with Marcy. I know Anthony noted that we're going to have a web link, but we've actually already created. It's actually All Abilities Park. So it's our website / All Abilities Park. So information's already started to be posted on there, and we'll continue to have additional updates up through our pre-construction meeting, which would be this fall. So there's I guess I'll call a general map right now and some basic information, but as we have more details and maps and figures and that sort of stuff for our All Abilities Park, we'll have that posted on that specific site. I'll include that in this Friday's manager's report, that direct link, so that you guys can share that through your social. And finally, I actually talked with Vidya today on some possible dates, so those dates will be in this Friday's manager's report as well for the joint training that was just talked about. That's all I have.
Very good. Madam Clerk?
I have two updates, sir. First, for the Memorial Day, I did hear from the Stony Creek band director, so we are going to have some band members. So as soon as I get some more details on that, I'll pass that out in an email. And also, boards and commissions applications, I have received in a few more. Most notably is David Becker's renewal for the Paint Creek Trailway, and Lisa Germani Williams for the DDA. So I'll be forwarding those on to you guys tomorrow as well.
Very good.
That's all I have, Your Honor.
Thank you. I did hear that the Rochester High Band is going to be in Memphis, Tennessee that weekend, so that's why
Be out of town.
they are out of town. Because I called somebody on that. And Mr. City Attorney?
Nothing, thank you.
Any of the chiefs? Anything?
Mr. Mayor, we will have vaccine available at the fire station on Thursday from 1 until 4:30. It could either be your second, third, or fourth.
Very good, thank you. Councilmember Gould?
Nothing this evening, thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Salvia?
I think just tagging on the community garden, ribbon cutting, there is a fundraiser that's out there for the community garden. I know it's posted on the Dinosaur Hill website. They're doing T-shirts, so pretty cool fundraiser to support the community garden. And then also in the spirit of, I think all the organizations around town are tracking, are our numbers back up, kind of back to 2019 levels. At the OPC board meeting, we talked about that, and they're getting back to those levels. The community house, they are they're booming. They're actually 10% above the 2019 levels. So happy to see everybody out and about. This past weekend, the parks were packed and full, and Rochester's just a great place to live.
Councilmember Sage.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think a couple meetings ago, we had made mention that we were looking for some kind of report out from the fire chief on the lighting discussion we had, potentially at the one address, and as well, whether we were going to readdress that lighting ordinance.
Welcome, Chief.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. The good news is I didn't get arrested as being a peeping Tom over the last 2 weeks. I've made 5 spot checks up into that area. We had one neighbor who had a light in their backyard. We dropped a letter off in my business card, and I've not yet seen the light turn back on. So I think the neighbor has been very cooperative, though I did not get a chance to talk to them personally. We did communicate by a written letter and my business card. Currently, in the area, there's 2 garages. Both of them have coach lights on the front. One has a coach light next to the door going in. They are coach lights, they're not spotlights. The bulbs are fully contained within the coach lamps. And measuring the candela at the property line does not exceed 1 candela. Depending on where you stand along the street, it's between 0.5 and 0.8 candela. So that's my report from the last 2 weeks of follow-up in the area. Open to questions, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Questions?
I guess, because we keep getting the pictures, so that one light directly across the street is not, that does not exceed any?
It is less than 1 candela at the property line, councilperson.
Okay.
The best way I can describe it is, if you were to look through the window right now in the shade, you see the lights outside. Although you can see the light, the candela rating, and I don't know what it is, I'd have to go out and measure it. So that's the only explanation that I could give you from the pictures that you've seen. When I take a look at the lights, they're not spotlights, they're not directional, they're coach lamps. The bulbs are fully within the coach lamp themselves, and it complies with our candela ratings.
Is it,
Councilmember Gould?
thank you, I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor. Is it possible that the pictures are from before the discussion? Because I think that was a pretty bright light.
It's very bright.
So maybe that's off now.
The guy doesn't turn it off ever.
Well, I mean, if the chief says it's whatever the brightest light was has not been back on, maybe.
That's in a backyard. This is in, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, in anticipation of the discussion tonight, I was there last night at 9:15.
Off.
Yeah, and I'll be there again tonight, trust me.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you,
And
Chief.
what I will do is I will do some continued just follow-up to make sure that we stay stable up there.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Okay? Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Anything further, Councilmember Sage?
Nothing. Thank
Councilmember
you.
Albrecht?
Nothing tonight.
Councilmember Harrison?
Nothing for me tonight. Thank you.
Councilmember Peterson?
No, thank you, Mayor.
Yeah, I would just like to, a couple quick things, just say with the boards and commissions, just for all of us on the council to reach out to people who are on boards or people we think might want to be on the boards to see if we can get some more candidates. And I just wanted to also echo the Mayor Pro Tem that the parks this weekend, the parks and the trails were booming, and it's really a testament to our park system and things that there's lots of things to do in Rochester. So on that note, I would like to have a motion to go into closed session with the, according to the city attorney, with the expectation that we will be coming out of closed session into open session.
So moved.
Motion by Councilmember Peterson,
Support.
support by Councilmember Sage. Madam Clerk, the roll, please.
Vixen,
Yes.
Salvia,
Yes.
Albrecht,
Yes.
Gould,
Yes.
Harrison?
Yes.
Peterson?
Yes.
Sage?
Yes. Thank you, and I will take a 5-minute break.